Let me tell you about a story that happened in the town of Puli in Taiwan. On the surface, it looked like one family was just having a terrible, terrible run of bad luck. A series of tragedies, one right after another. But as investigators started digging, they realized this wasn't bad luck at all. This was murder. And it was all driven by a motive that's as old as time itself: money. And that question, right there, is really what this whole story is about. I mean, for most of us, debt is a huge source of stress, a financial problem you have to solve. But for one woman, it became something else entirely. It became a license to kill. So let's talk about Lin Yu-ju. If you saw her, you just see a wife, a mother, someone who ran a small tofu business with her husband. Pretty normal, right? But underneath that, she was a woman who was absolutely drowning, and her quiet desperation would lead her down a path of just unimaginable cruelty. To really get how a seemingly ordinary person could do these things, you have to follow the money. And it all started with a massive, crushing trail of debt. Before any of the murders, there was a huge red flag. Back in August 2008, a local snack shop owner decided to stop buying tofu from Lin Yuju. Now, a normal business owner might be upset, maybe try to find a new customer, but her response? She doused his shop in diesel fuel and set it on fire. This was our first real glimpse of how she handled financial pressure. Not well. You've got to picture this. Lin Yuju was trapped. She was completely addicted to the Mark 6 lottery. We're talking betting millions of new Taiwan dollars on a single draw. On top of that, she had bank loans, credit card debt, and a huge loan of $500,000 NT dollars from her own brother, which he wanted back. She was just totally overwhelmed. And yeah, this is where the story takes its darkest turn. With all those debts piling up and her brother breathing down her neck for his money, Lin Yuju's desperation boiled over into something truly unthinkable. This timeline just shows you how cold and calculated this all was. So in September, she takes out a life insurance policy on her mom. Just 2 months go by, and her brother demands his money. The very next day, she goes to her mother, begs for the money. Her mother says no. So Lin Yuju shoves her down a flight of marble stairs, and she doesn't stop there. She then repositions the body to make it look like a simple, tragic accident before just calmly walking away. 8 days later, she's filing the insurance claim. And for what? The price tag on her own mother's life was a little over 5 million new Taiwan dollars. And the terrifying thing is, it worked. The plan worked perfectly. She had successfully killed for money, and nobody had a clue. But here's the thing about a crush and gambling addiction. That money was never going to last. The murder of her mother wasn't the end of the story. No, it was just proof of concept, and it was about to evolve into a terrifying new pattern. It took all of 5 months for her to be right back where she started, broke and desperate. And just like before, an opportunity presented itself. Her mother-in-law, Cheng Hui-seng, ended up in the hospital for something pretty minor: diarrhea and dizziness. This time, though, pushing someone down the stairs was too obvious, too risky. She needed a quieter method. And her solution, it's just bone-chilling. She made sure her mother-in-law was in a private room, so no witnesses. Then she went home, mixed up this lethal cocktail of her own sleeping pills and antidepressants, and then added a powdered food preservative from their tofu shop. She went back to the hospital and injected that poison right into her mother-in-law's IV drip. Her mother-in-law died, and the doctors chalked it up to natural causes. Lin Yuju had found her method. So when her own husband, Liu Yuhang, was hospitalized for a stomach bug just 1 month later, she did the exact same thing. Same hospital, same situation, a minor illness, and the same method: an injection into the IV drip. The only thing she changed was the recipe, this time adding pesticide and industrial methanol to the mix. So now we have 3 dead family members in less than a year. All of them had insurance policies, and all that money was flowing to one person: Lin Yuju. Her greed was finally about to catch up with her. It was a couple of things that finally brought this whole thing crashing down. First, the insurance company got suspicious. This many claims from one family in such a short time? Big red flag. But the real hero of this story is a nurse named Lo Huping. During one of the attempts on her husband, she noticed his IV bag just looked off. It was cloudy and discolored. She swapped it out, saving his life. And, critically, she kept the contaminated bag as evidence. When Lin Yuju came back a month later and succeeded, that bag was the final piece of the puzzle. The game was up.
Okay, so she's arrested. Now the case goes to court, where all the shocking details of her crimes are laid bare, and it kicks off this really complex and pretty controversial legal battle.
And the Nantao District Court, they didn't mess around. They found her guilty of everything: the murders of her mother, her mother-in-law, and her husband, plus the arson and the insurance fraud. They pointed to her extreme cruelty and her total lack of remorse and handed down the most severe sentence they possibly could: death. So you'd think that's the end of the story, right? Death sentence, case closed. But it wasn't. A tiny legal technicality was about to change everything and force Taiwan's highest court to step in. So what happened? It all came down to this one legal idea in Taiwanese law called a continuous offense. Basically, what it means is if you commit multiple criminal acts, but they're all done with the same single intent, the law can treat them as one single crime instead of a bunch of separate ones.
See, the lower court had treated the poisoning of her husband as two different crimes: one attempted murder and one successful murder. But the Supreme Court said, wait a minute. They argued that because both attempts had the exact same intent to kill him for insurance money, they should have been treated as a single continuous offense. This was a procedural error. It meant her conviction on that specific charge was flawed, and the whole case had to be sent back for resenting.
But just because they found a legal error, don't for a second think the Supreme Court was going easy on her. Actually, their words were scathing. They said this about her: her methods were cold-blooded. To describe her character as still good is a startling contradiction of societal norms and empirical rules. So they were absolutely clear about what they thought of her, even as they pointed out the legal mistake. So what happened in the end? Lin Yuju's death sentence was overturned, and she was sentenced to life in prison instead. She escaped execution, but it's so important to understand why. It wasn't because the courts suddenly thought her crimes were any less horrific. It was purely because of that one legal technicality. The case of Lin Yuju is just a chilling, terrifying look at how financial desperation can curdle into something truly monstrous. It started with debt and ended with her poisoning her own family for insurance money. And it leaves you with this really unsettling question to think about: where exactly is the line between desperation and pure evil?